Mr. President, this Friday, January 16th, marks 10 years since former President Obama declared a state of emergency over the Flint water crisis. Less than 70 miles away from the most abundant freshwater source in the world, it was exactly that water that our Flint community became known for. Specifically, as a site where one of the worst man-made environmental and public health disasters in our country's recent history took place. As the result of a reckless budget decision executed at the hands of public officials who prioritized short-term cost-cutting measures over the health and well-being of people they were entrusted to serve. The Flint community was exposed to toxic levels of lead and other dangerous chemicals when our drinking water source was changed to the highly corrosive Flint River without the crucial corrosion control additives back in 2014. For nearly 2 years, more than 100,000 Flint area residents drank and used water that was wreaking havoc on their health and posing serious threats to their future well-being. Over the entirety of that time, residents spoke up, raising concerns about the questionable color, smell, and taste of their water. They spoke out about the rashes they were developing, the hair they were losing, and the sicknesses they were battling. At several moments, a brave and persistent group of environmental and public health experts released data showcasing the elevated levels of lead in the water. They raised the alarm on the dangers it was posing to the community, especially to Flint's children. Damage to developing brains and nervous systems, learning and speech delays, disruptions in growth, behavioral issues, mental health consequences, and the list goes on. Despite public outcry, despite GM's refusal to use the water in their plants, and even the tragic Legionnaires' deaths, officials at every level of government refused to acknowledge the obvious, that their decision and their inaction were poisoning residents from their taps. Rather than seize on one of several opportunities that they had to intervene, they looked the other way, using every smoke and mirror tactic available to justify the blatant refusal to act in defense of the Flint community. And now, over a decade since that short-sighted decision took place, what we feared then continues to surface to reality in our classrooms and community. Just as warned, the toxic substances flowing through Flint households during that time have taken a devastating toll on residents' mental and physical health. Among our adults, we see consequences every day: elevated blood pressure levels, higher rates of depression and PTSD. And laying on top of that is something harder to measure, but impossible to ignore: the stress, the distrust, and the feeling that the systems meant to protect us failed us. More than a decade later, many families still won't drink from their own taps. They continue to pay for bottled water because that's where safety feels certain. For our kids, we're seeing more diagnoses of learning disabilities, ADHD, and the heightened need for special education services. The state of emergency was officially lifted on paper last year, but the impacts of the people and children of the Flint water crisis continue to linger because the impact of lead poisoning continues over time and for generations. Which is why last month I was equally shocked as I was appalled by hearing the leader of the Michigan House indicating that the Flint water crisis no longer impacts the people of Flint today. Let's be clear. Through no fault of their own, Flint kids and families found themselves victims to a public health crisis and environmental injustice of the highest order. They were failed by the government leaders and public officials whose very job it was to protect them. It is our responsibility to support those lead-poisoned kids, and doubly so because it was government, this government, that poisoned them. As I close, let me spend more energy where it is due. I want to recognize and extend my deepest gratitude to those individuals with the utmost determination, courage, and conviction who use their voices, skill sets, and positions of leadership to right this wrong and prevent it from unleashing further harm. I want us to remember and honor those who tragically lost their lives during this time and acknowledge that the enduring impact on the lives of their families that have forever been altered. And lastly, I want to pay tribute to those at the center of all, the people of Flint. In the face of historic challenges, grave injustices, and a myriad of significant hardships, the people of Flint have continued to show us what strength and resilience look like. Time and again, when confronted with adversity, they stand together in solidarity, embodying what it means to be a community. And while we'll never forget the Flint water crisis and the lives it changed, it will not define where we go next. Flint's future will be shaped by these strong people and the resolve that they show. Thank you, Mr. President.